This is a Squiz podcast. We're your shortcut to being informed.
G'day, Alice here from the Squiz Today podcast. While Claire and Kate get you across a wrap of the news every weekend, you can get your daily news fix in under 10 minutes each weekday morning with the Squiz Today podcast. It's like a mate getting you across the headlines. Search for Squiz Today in your podcasting app.
Weekly Wrap is the week in news and what's coming up. I'm Kate Watson.
And I'm Claire Kimball.
Our best Olympics ever is hard to beat this week, but outside of that, Kamala Harris has announced her running mate.
She has done that. There's been riots in the United Kingdom. They take some explaining, as does the reasons behind the United States share market drop earlier this week.
We talk about Australia's Economic Week also, and coming up, it's ECA, so Show Week, for Brizzy listeners, and a visit from across the ditch.
Let's do it.
Biggest story this week is the Olympics, Claire, in large part because the Olympics is always widely covered, of course, but we're also doing so very well.
Our best ever Olympics. You've probably seen that in the headlines once or twice, I reckon, even if you've just had a casual glance at the news.
Yeah.
Our medal tally, it's measured not just the amount of medals. When you add that up and look at the other ones below us, you can see we've won fewer medals than many other countries, but it's the amount of gold that we've won. Our best result before this was in Athens in 2004. That was 17 gold medals. Tokyo 2020, we won that amount as well.
Right now we're at 18, the third most after the USA on 30 and China with 28. We're not going to catch them, but we're not done yet. As we said last week, we record this on Friday, so by the time you're listening, we might have more medals in that tally. We will actually definitely have more medals in that tally. Watching out for Jess Hull in the women's 1500. Also heaps more cycling to come. The men's marathon swim, the Opals. Our women's basketball team is still in it.
I've been following them every game. I've just loved watching the Opals.
They're not a guaranteed medal yet.
They aren't yet.
As of the time of recording, but they're still in it. The Stingers, though, are guaranteed a medal. Our women's water polo team, silver or gold, we will find out early Sunday morning.
And beach volleyball, I only tuned into them in the middle of the week and it's like, wow, you girls are incredible.
The women's, yeah.
And the venue was so stunning, of course, near the Eiffel Tower. They're in the bronze medal match.
So much more to come. The breakdancing, of course, that sport is making its debut in Paris. No idea if we're a shot at this one.
It's the first time it's appeared, so I still get the giggles when I think about breaking, being in the Olympics. However, keeping an open mind, I'm going to absolutely tune in for that.
I am here to learn and I am interested. I was watching the sport climbing last night, absolutely in awe of that sport. That's the one, the boulder.
It's like watching ants, isn't it?
Well, that's the
so
fast
nimble,
one,
the fast
yeah.
one
And then,
up
but
the
the boulder one, incredible. Let's talk about the week that was, though, Claire. We finished the pool part of the games with 18 medals, 7 gold. One of the stories of these games for us, and also the last Olympics, but especially this week, has been the success in some of the less traditional sports. So in BMX, we had Saya Sakakibara. I spoke about her last week. And Deem, 2 gold medals in the skateboarding, Arissa True, Keegan Palmer. Surfing, Jack Robinson won a silver medal.
A sense there that we've done better than we might have expected to. So the Australian team has really lifted in those sports. Also, let's just get back to Arissa True. Squiz Kids talked to her in June. It was a beautiful kids Q&A. So Squiz Kids who listened to the podcast sent in their questions for Arissa. Arissa went through all of them. It was so very patient and beautiful. It was a really good listen. So dive into that if you get a chance.
Yeah, it's designed for primary age kids. And now that she's a gold medalist, we think it's a must listen. A link to that is in your episode notes. We had that one night this week of epic results. So we woke up, Thursday morning,
yeah.
Going 4 gold medals. Matt Wern in the sailing, Nina Kennedy in the pole vault. We spoke about the skateboarding. The track cycling gold medal was quite the tale. I'd forgotten about what happened in Tokyo with the track cycling. Alex Porter, one of the team members, remember his handlebars broke?
Only when you mentioned it.
Yeah.
He was so severely injured too, wasn't he? Remember, his whole face and side was just completely scraped.
I think we still got a potential. I think we got a bronze medal still, but we were gunning for gold. We had to, he had to recover from that. They had to race another qualifier. The whole incident completely derailed them. Now they've got the gold.
They've got the gold, and the team that they were opposing, the United Kingdom, had a mishap as they were coming around the final lap too. So
That's right.
what goes around comes around, I guess.
I only watch that sport during the Olympics, and
me
I love
too.
it every single time.
And the Kieran, how they push
It's
other forward.
amazing.
I love it too.
Amazing. We haven't mentioned Noemi Fox.
No.
Should mention her.
Sister of Jess Fox, of course. Those sisters, to be able to win 3 gold medals between them. Amazing. And just seeing Jess really flourish now.
Yeah.
She's doing lots of commentating.
Lots, yeah.
And really good to see her sister get her moment as well.
Yeah, as someone with sisters, I was quite moved by that. The tennis, we won the doubles, Matt Ebden and John Peers. First time Australia has won Olympic gold in the doubles since the Woodies in 1996.
Yeah, they're my vintage, Todd Woodbridge and Mark Woodford.
Matt Ebden and John Peers need a nickname. Have we tried to give them one?
You just got to look at their names a bit, I guess. Ebbies, I don't know.
I feel like someone might have tried to do this already.
Pedons. It doesn't really flow,
It's
does
not
it?
the same as the Woodies,
No.
unfortunately. We heard, obviously, that's all the good stuff. There was a few stories out of the week that aren't all that rosy. One in particular is rowing.
I'm glad you're gathering this one up because it has been bubbling along in the news about their poor performance. The worst performance Australia has had in rowing in 36 years.
Yeah, they're conducting a review into their performance. I found this one interesting because they're well funded by the government. They're also well funded by Gina Reinhardt, one of the richest people in Australia. If not, she might be at the top of that list at the moment. I can't keep
every
up.
now and then she is, yeah.
She was there cheering them on. She's committed to continue funding them until at least 2028. But as they say, a bit of soul searching to do for our rowers.
A bit of soul searching. I happened to be in the car yesterday afternoon and had Roy and HG on ABC radio.
Oh, I listened to this.
It has been a bit of a theme of theirs to go into the Rosellas and exactly what has happened there and how Gina and her big operation with Hancock Mining has supported them and what that all means. It's been interesting listening.
I saw that. I have to confess, I saw a clip on Instagram rather than actually
There you
listening
go.
on the radio,
Yeah.
but I did see that they were picking this up and running with it. Casting forward, I think the way we can be helpful is to tell you what we know about the closing ceremony. It's in a stadium. We're not doing the river thing again.
And look, what they say is it's just good for everyone to be able to come together to celebrate. Clearly that part of bringing the athletes together to do that, because that was really probably the main criticism, wasn't it, out of the opening ceremony, that it wasn't about the athletes.
Yeah.
So there they go. That's going to be sort of 4 or 5 a.m. Monday morning our time. Yeah, set the alarm, get up, have a look, because Tom Cruise is going to be there.
Apparently. Has it been confirmed? I'm not sure it's been confirmed, but apparently he's doing a stunt because part of the opening ceremony is that you hand it over to the next games, and that's obviously in the US. Los Angeles 2028. Here we come.
Makes me wonder, who are we going to send for Brisbane 2032?
Here we go.
Yeah.
Let's jump into the other stories from the week. Claire, there's a bit going on.
Last week, this week, Olympics, of course, dominating, but yeah, big news stories happening.
So I'm thinking about where to start here, but I think the US presidential confirmation of who's actually running is probably, we'll start there. Let's do that first.
Big notable thing. So Harris-Walz versus Trump and Vance. We've got those main headliners now locked in. The Minnesota Governor, Tim Walz, of course, being the latest cast member to join this whole endeavour. I know that Alice and I have promised a shortcut coming soon about the Harris-Walz ticket, but just some top lines on him. He's a teacher from a small city in his state. He only became politically active 20 years ago.
Oh, okay. How old is he?
He is in his early 60s. I think he's a 63, 64 baby, so that would make him early 60s.
Okay. He got into it apparently because he took a school group to a George W. Bush rally as a social studies excursion. They were turned away.
One of the students had on his pencil case a sticker for the opposite side.
Oh.
Walz stepped in with security to say, he's with me. It's all okay. We're fine.
Yeah.
And it really blew up into a whole thing.
Oh.
So
he was motivated to join
really motivated
to get into politics.
Yeah.
There you go. He was elected to the state's Congress, then elected governor in 2018. He's been positioned as a moderate in the Democrats. Analysts say when you look at his record, though, he's quite liberal. When you're talking about American politics, that means he's further to the left. What that means is he's got a history of embracing socially progressive positions, so things like same-sex marriage and support for abortion services.
And they're policies that are and issues that are worth pulling out because, of course, this religious element in the United States is such a factor. When you look across just the broad demographics, 65% of Americans identify as Christians. In Australia, that's about 40%. And of course, we know from elections past what huge issues that Christian big group of people and their
Is
views.
Tim Walz Christian?
Yep, certainly is. So, yeah, those positions really do matter to a lot of voters.
He's seen as a Midwestern dad. He is a Midwestern dad. So there's a lot being said about his appeal in that regard for voters who are sort of on the fence and wondering how they're going to vote. I asked you this week, Claire, about when debates might be held. Trump is keen.
Trump is very keen. There was a bit of back and forth about cancelling on debates that had been locked in. But as we got to the end of this week, Donald Trump said that he's agreed to 3 debates in September. He's waiting response from Harris's campaign, he says. As we put this together, the ABC debate, so the American broadcaster, not the Australian broadcaster, I say that every single time.
Imagine if we got
What
the
a
first
coup.
US presidential debate.
What a coup that would be. Apparently, they've both agreed to that. So that's locked in for the 10th of September.
10th of September, that's the first one, Harris v. Trump. The others would be hosted by Fox and NBC. Not sure if Harris is committed to those yet. Here we go, hey?
Yeah, indeed we do.
Next up, over to the UK and those riots across the country. People might have seen those popping up in the news this week. The violence is the worst they've experienced in more than a decade. This seems to have all begun after the killing of 3 young girls in Southport 10 days ago.
Yeah, and that was shocking enough. But then you add to that this mis and disinformation campaign that has really stirred up a lot of trouble. So what I'm referring to there is that social media accounts that were linked to organisations and individuals on the far right have circulated. The main jumping off point were posts about a fictitious Arabic-sounding name as the killer and the claim that he was a Muslim asylum seeker who had illegally arrived in the United Kingdom by boat.
In fact, he was born in Wales. His parents are certified immigrants from Rwanda. He has a Christian background. Authorities say it was not religiously or politically motivated at all, that attack. When you say far right, we're talking about people like Andrew Tate.
Yeah, Andrew Tate, of course, is one of those characters who really has been very divisive. He's an alleged criminal when it comes to kidnapping and raping women. He's facing those charges in Romania at the moment. But his use of social media to stir up this far right wing in his home country of the United Kingdom is something that's being really looked at, including in this incident. So what happened initially in Southport was that hundreds of rioters, after they saw these posts, they attacked a mosque that was near the scene of the stabbing. And following that, there were rallies and riots across London, across other cities in the United Kingdom. In total, more than 500 people have been arrested. Some have even already been convicted and have been sent to prison. So it's just, I guess, with all of that, how did this start?
Yeah, what is the flashpoint? A website called Channel 3 Now is being sort of highlighted as one of the first to publish that fictitious name and to say he was an asylum seeker. It's interesting, Channel 3 Now. It's run content from Russia. Investigations say people linked to it come from Canada, the US and Pakistan. Essentially, it looks like an outfit that takes crime events, jumps on them, fans the flames, circulates misinformation and makes money off the clicks.
It's part of that very cynical loop of taking events, really stirring up trouble, driving traffic to a website and getting money off the advertising on those websites. Should do the Newshounds course, Kate, because it teaches our kids exactly what that all means. So, yeah, it's one of those ones. And I guess the nub of it is this sort of question that's going on around how so many people could be galvanised so quickly.
Exactly. That's the point. Like this misinformation spread, but people were very quickly able to jump on it and then act in this way. Most of these rioters are men. They're angry. Many seem to have an anti-immigration agenda. And whilst Channel 3 is the flashpoint, as we said, British security agencies have said the riots don't appear to be orchestrated by one single far-right group or one anti-Islamic group or a single social media service. It's across messaging apps, WhatsApp, Telegram, X, Twitter, X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, and more.
Yeah, and lots of focus too on the fact that there are a lot of young men involved in this. I think about a quarter of those who have been arrested are under 21.
Young,
so
yeah.
that's a real concern. Lots of big questions, of course, lots of questions for the new Prime Minister, Keir Starmer. It's only a few weeks into his leadership of the government and they've got to get to the bottom of it.
If you want a contrast to this week 3 Taylor Swift concerts were cancelled in Vienna due to a planned terror attack. Have you seen the vision of Swifties in the streets singing together to send a message of peace?
I have not seen that, but now that you're talking about it, I'm absolutely going to go and find that. I was just thinking, remember how excited we were to go to Taylor Swift? Imagine having all of your concerts cancelled.
Yeah, it would be very disappointing.
But they've so disappointing.
Well, what they've done, these fans, is gathered in the street and they've just sung her songs and held up love hearts. And it is a beautiful contrast to a terrible week. The third story that we thought was worth pulling out is inflation and interest rates. It's been a big theme, not just here in Australia.
It really has. So let's start at the top of that. I guess this difference of opinion between Treasurer Jim Chalmers, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and the Reserve Bank. This week, that all kicked off with the Reserve Bank board meeting. They held interest rates at 4.35%, but there's been a whole discussion about inflation sticking around, even though the government was saying that, things are where we thought they would be. Don't panic. We know what's going on, but the question really has been about what the Reserve Bank would make of all of that. And now we know a little bit more about where their heads are at.
Yeah, so Governor Michelle Bullock said the board considered raising interest rates from 4.35, as you said, to 4.6 because of the high levels of demand in the economy. What she means is that consumers and businesses are still spending money. Then the bank's chief economist, Sarah Hunter, told a Senate committee the government's spending is a worry.
Yeah, and that's where things got real, I guess, in this whole question about whether there's a difference of opinion. So what Hunter was talking about were things like energy rebates. The budget, the federal budget, had a $300 energy rebate for all Australian households. So what the Reserve Bank is saying, when you put that kind of cash, I guess, into the economy, it is having an impact in terms of keeping inflation high. Treasurer Chalmers says, though, no, that's not the case. The data we have says that that's not happening. And then I guess we cut to the end of the week and the government announces more spending in the way of increasing wages in the childcare sector.
That's a $3.6 billion commitment from the government. So big government spending. It's a tricky one because high inflation, cost of living pressures mean many Aussies need financial support, and I don't think many disagree that childcare workers should be paid more. But the RBA is saying when the government gives that support, the money's being spent, not saved, and it could be keeping inflation higher.
Yep, and it gets trickier this week, of course, because the United States economy is in trouble as well.
Yeah, Monday. What happened there?
Yeah, so there was new data about employment that was out late last week, and that really spooked investors. There's also questions about whether the United States could be heading into a recession. That saw stock markets globally drop quite a bit. In the early part of the week.
It dropped a lot.
Yeah. It was a few percent. Most of that's been recovered, but it just goes to show the extent to which the American economy impacts the whole world, and we're all struggling with the same things.
That's right. I feel like we've covered that off pretty well because it's very much a to be continued.
Very much so.
Coming up in the week ahead, Claire, and sticking with the economic theme, kind of, I guess, political theme. Federal Parliament's back.
Well, I think
it's been a while.
It has been 6 weeks. That winter recess went by very quickly. And it is a bit of an economic theme because of all the things that we've just talked about. You get those people back in a room together and those are the things that they're going to be talking about. So I reckon keep your ears peeled for more of this conversation about exactly where our economy's at.
I think Peter Dutton might be saying that the government's not doing a good job of handling it.
I reckon, look, if I was a betting lady.
That might be a safe bet. I don't know if you're even able to bet on that. There are a couple of key bits of data also to look out for this week. On Tuesday, the Bureau of Statistics will release the wage price index for April to June quarter. What does that one tell us?
That tells us how much wages are going up in the public sector and the private sector. It's an indicator of how businesses are feeling in terms of supporting more workers, what they're doing in terms of actually spending more themselves.
And then we've got the employment data here locally, Australia's employment data.
Yep, exactly. Of course, unemployment has been low. It was expected to go up by quite a bit, but it hasn't quite done that yet. So there's always eyes on that employment data. Big questions, of course, when you put all that together, just at an individual level, is your standard of living holding up? Your bills are going crazy. Are your wages going up by as much to cover all of that? It's really one of these things that are going to play into an election as we get towards that in the coming few months.
How does that all come together? On Tuesday, Minister for the NDIS, Bill Shorten, will address the National Press Club on government services in Australia over the next decade. The format for the press club is you come, you deliver your speech for half an hour, and then you get 30 minutes of questions from journalists who attend. We reckon there'll be a few for Bill Shorten on the government's response to the Royal Commission on the abuse of people with disabilities.
So don't expect you to remember this, but it was one of the things that we rattled off last week as one of the big news stories that sort of
we
didn't have much room.
Yeah.
When you get into the details of that, what happened last week is the federal government gave its response to 172 recommendations from that Royal Commission that it has primary or shared responsibility for. The government accepted just 13 in full. So the sector has lots of questions about why aren't you doing
not more? Yeah. Wednesday is a public holiday for Brisbane, people living in just Brisbane, not Queensland, just Brisbane. It's for the Ekka. That's the annual show. Have you been to Ekka?
Been to Ekka a few times. You have to get the strawberry sundae.
Okay, right.
That's not even a request.
I have not been to Ekka, to put it on the bucket list. Thursday, we're back into politics. New Zealand's Prime Minister Christopher Luxon arrives in Australia for a 2-day visit.
Yeah, so it's Luxon's first time doing that after his election earlier this year. On the agenda, Kate, I'm going to go slowly through this because it's pulling a few strands together that we've talked about a lot this year. You'll remember there was a High Court decision that said that the government had to release people who were in immigration detention because they couldn't be deported. They were this group of people who were convicted criminals.
Nothing to do with New Zealand at this point?
Nothing to do with New Zealand at this point. But a lot of that positioning from the government was because of discussions that Anthony Albanese had with Jacinda Ardern. There's been this real friction point between Australia and New Zealand, with Australia sending back to New Zealand criminals, even though they'd spent most of their lives here in Australia. So the genesis point of this whole thing really was that New Zealand-Australia relationship. So now that things have changed and the government is trying to actually put those policies and regulations back into place, that we would send criminals back, it's a new point to pick up that discussion again because New Zealand doesn't want them.
So this week we've got obviously a new Prime Minister in New Zealand, but he's still on the same page as Jacinda Ardern was back when she was Prime Minister. Even though they're from different parties, this is a New Zealand-Australia thing. They're likely going to talk about this.
It's on the agenda for sure.
There's an air show on the Gold Coast.
I haven't been to many air shows, but I have a lot of airplane nerds in my life.
Yeah, people that love this stuff.
Really love this stuff.
Yeah, I understand that. So on Friday, it's the Pacific Air Show 2024, and that's on the Gold Coast. Look up if you're in that part of the world. It'd probably be unavoidable, I'd say.
I think you could hear them as well.
Yeah. Squiz recommends, you've got 2 things.
So just going to the news, right, I could have done a whole list, I reckon, just before we got to those series of stories about wild things that have happened in the last week. So the first thing I want to pull out, did you know, Kate, that there are some astronauts, 2 US astronauts.
I read about this.
They went to the space station on an 8-day mission. They're probably going to be there for a year and a bit.
Yeah, they can't get them back
They're
down.
stuck.
I have so many questions about this. Like, what are they eating? How do they have enough stuff? Like,
do they have a change of clothes?
Yeah, like, thank you. Is this a long read? Is this a podcast? What am I getting into here?
It's just a really good report. Like, you don't even need to go too far past the facts
Yeah.
of this, of what is happening.
Yeah.
So the issue is that the Boeing Starliner, it can't be repaired for them to come back. So there's discussions now about exactly how they do that.
They have to build something new.
Or discussions with SpaceX. It's got a mission going soonish. They might leave 2 seats spare on that, which is a big deal.
Which is Elon Musk's
Exactly.
outfit.
Yeah.
It is.
But imagine.
I know.
Just imagine.
8 days and then it's like 8 months to a year, possibly. It's quite a wild story. Yeah. Thank you for pulling that one out.
My second one.
Yeah.
And this is thanks to Eliza Harvey, who posted on LinkedIn as I was looking through that through the week.
I saw
Eliza,
this
of course,
post.
who
Yes.
was with us. She's with the ABC these days. The Real Life Americans story. If you watch The Americans,
Yeah, I did.
if you've been a long time Squizzy, you'll remember I had such a phase with that. I just loved that show. It's real life in terms of that big release of prisoners, that prisoner swap.
That happened last week. Yeah.
There were 2 Russian spies who were deep in Slovenia. They had children there. They were posed as an Argentinian art dealer and an entrepreneur. They were found out and they were sent to prison. They've now gone to Russia. The kids that they've taken home to Russia never knew that they were Russian.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like The Americans. It's incredible. So
There's
yes, a long read on that.
a long read on that. Mine is actually something we flicked back and forth between each other about the UK riots, the Media Watch episode this week. I don't reference Media Watch a lot, but they went through exactly how this misinformation, disinformation, whatever definition you want to give it, spread. And it's just a really quick way to just get across how this happens and the impact it can have.
Yeah, it's a very impactful show when they take on those things and get it right.
Yeah. Squiz Press, what do we got this week? We hadn't really talked about what we were going to talk about.
Do you want to talk about your podcast episode on future women?
No.
Okay.
We
Well,
can, sure.
look,
I did an interview this week with Helen
I'll
McCabe.
talk about
Okay.
it then. if you like. So Kate has done an interview with Helen McCabe on their Future Women Leadership series. Kate talks very candidly about her life, about balancing work and family responsibilities. I learned a lot.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did. You're not a dweller, which I knew. You're a forward-looking doer.
Yeah.
And you get momentum in a really meaningful way. Sometimes that shows up to me as nagging.
Yeah, I couldn't be a nagger. Yeah. Okay, I mean,
But you're not. You're not
we
a
can
nagger. We're
spin
just
it
getting
either
stuff
way.
done.
We can spin it either way. That's true.
I'm just giving you a performance review as we go.
I know. Is this like
But no, it's a really good insight into, I think, there's an optimism around what an opportunity it is to have family, have meaningful work, and really go for it. I really enjoyed it.
I talked a lot about like what we believe at the Squiz too, and why we do things the way we do them, and particularly around that agenda-free, opinion-free news.
Yeah.
Thank you for shouting that out. And Helen, that's a great podcast to recommend as well,
Yeah, it
that
is.
leadership series one. So a shout out for that also. Newsmakers this week, I'm actually about to sit down with Mia Friedman and have a chat with her about all things Mia, all things Mamma Mia and how she built that business, and just some philosophical questions I have for her around how she approaches news.
I can't wait for that.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. So we're hoping to turn that around and get that one out next week. So one to look forward to. Thanks for listening to this episode of Weekly Wrap, and we'll chat to you next Saturday.